In the fractured, soul-ravaged world of the Great War, where God's angels descend in storms of fire and judgment, and demons claw through ruptured earth in tides of corruption, there exists a force that transcends the binary struggles between heaven and hell. It does not kneel to the divine, nor does it revel in damnation. It stands outside the sacred and the profane, untouched by grace, untempted by sin. It is the Temple of Metamorphosis, a cultic, mutagenic religion born not from belief, but from the dissolution of belief itself. Where angels demand obedience and demons trade in temptation, the temple offers only a whisper to change. To its adherents, the temple is not a creed or a church, but a process. It is not an ideology to be adopted, but an affection to be embraced. The temple does not provide truth. It dismantles truth. It peels back the illusions of self, of morality, of meaning, and reveals the writhing potential underneath. It does not offer salvation. It offers unbecoming. To walk the temple's path is to shed identity like a molted skin, to discard history, memory, and form, and to be rewritten by something older, stranger, and incomprehensibly vast. For the faithful, this is not a loss, but a sacred liberation. Within the temple, pain becomes purpose, mutation becomes liturgy, madness becomes communion. There is no hierarchy, no judgment, no salvation, only process, only change. To serve the temple is not to believe in something greater than oneself, but to cease to be oneself at all, and within that annihilation lies a gospel more intimate than any scripture, the ecstatic, horrifying, sacred erasure of the soul. The temple is not the enemy of heaven or hell, it is their evolution, a quiet, crawling truth that infects the very notion of resistance. The doorway is open, and transformation is inevitable. At the heart of the temple's ideology lies the doorway, a psychic rupture in space and time that offers no clear origin, destination, or purpose. Unlike the divine mandates of the Faith Keepers or the infernal ambitions of the Black Grail, the doorway does not explain or judge. It simply exists, radiating waves of psionic mutation and inviting the willing or desperate into its embrace. Those who step into its presence do not return as they once were. Some return as prophets of change. Others return as masses of flesh that speak in chords and pulses rather than words. And some never return at all, having been wholly absorbed by the door's ineffable purpose. Their final thoughts, if they can be called such, often echo across the pulse, like ripples through a collective dream, leaving behind traces, murmurs, colours, sensations that live on within the temple's ever-expanding memory. This encounter with the doorway gave birth to the Temple of Metamorphosis, not through organization or doctrine, but through mutation, revelation, and the collapse of identity. The first vectors were not priests or scholars. They were the lost, deserters from divine war, plague-ridden civilians, and madmen who heard whispers in the rain. These early initiates did not form a church in the traditional sense. They gathered around the doorway as one might gather around a fire, not for comfort, but for annihilation. The door did not heal them. It rewrote them. Their bodies changed, their minds fractured and reassembled. Their perception of reality shifted until they no longer saw themselves as individuals, but as facets of an unfolding process. What began as a trickle became a tide. More pilgrims came, some seeking salvation, others pursuing the promise of freedom from pain, thought, or identity. The doorway changed them all. From this crucible of becoming, the temple was born, not as a construction of stone and dogma, but as a living organism, a biomechanical entity of flesh and will. The temple flesh began to grow, an architectural cancer of muscle, sinew, and bone. Over time, it formed cathedrals of pulsating tissue, sanctums lined with nerve endings, and corridors that twisted and contracted like intestinal tracts. Walls weep amniotic fluid, ceilings tremble with breath, and even the air carries the scent of sweat, salt, and something unnameable. This was not a metaphor for faith. It was the faith. The Temple of Metamorphosis does not have a central scripture. It has no prophets, no hierarchical clergy, no divine commandments. Its theology is encoded in flesh, ritual, and resonance. The central tenet of the temple is this: existence is process. All things change, and to resist change is to deny the fundamental nature of reality. Identity, self, morality, memory, all are lies perpetuated by the illusion of stability. The soul is not immortal, it is impermanent, and only absolute is the doorway, and the only holy act is transformation. This belief renders the temple utterly alien to both the forces of heaven and hell. The faithful, bound by divine order, see the temple as a heresy beyond comprehension. The demons, obsessed with domination and corruption, find no purchase in its philosophy. The temple seeks no power. It makes no bargain. It does not spread through conquest, but through contagion, a psychic and biological infection that seduces the soul into voluntary dissolution. It whispers not in threats or commands, but in the language of surrender. To join is not to be persuaded, but to be undone. Where other factions derive power from structured doctrine, relics, or divine intervention, the temple derives itself strength from entropy. It thrives in decay. It finds sanctity in collapse. A ruined trench line, soaked in blood and rain, is as sacred as any cathedral. A battlefield grave, where memory dissolves and names fade, is the perfect womb for the temple's growth. To the temple, corruption is not failure. It is the first step in evolution. It is not death, but gestation. Central to this ecosystem of transformation are the Chrysalid sisters, figures of immense psychic presence and almost total post-humanity. They are not leaders in the traditional sense. They are not worshipped as individuals, but revered as nodes in the doorway's will. To become a Chrysalid sister is to undergo the rite of descent, a process so invasive that it erases the initiate's history, personality, and form. Fungal matrices replace bone, sensory antennae blossom from skin. Thought becomes waveful. Then harmonic resonance. The sister ceases to be a she and becomes a note in the pulse, the temple's hive mind. A single sister may carry within her voice a dozen fractured identities, all singing in unified purpose. In some cases, even enemies, once divine warriors or infernal champions, have become broken, remade, and sung into the pulse. This psychic pulse binds the temple's disparate components, its followers, its flesh architecture, and its psionic emissions, into a unified organism. Through the pulse, sisters sing to one another in cordial language, coordinating the temple's expansion, mutation, and defense. Their voices are not heard with ears, but felt in bone and blood. To stand in the presence of a Chrysalid sister is to risk losing oneself, not through violence, but through recognition of a deep more terrible truth, that selfhood is temporal, and the door is open. The Temple's followers, known as Vectors, serve as missionaries of mutation. Each one is a living embodiment of the Temple's creed. No two alike, each one shaped by unique experiences with the doorway's energy. Some Vectors resemble bloated prophets with segmented mouths. Others crawl on all fours, shedding skin and ribbons that sing. Some appear human, but speak in broken loops, repeating prayers in unknown languages that infect the minds of listeners. What unites them is not appearance, but purpose. To spread the pulse, to bring others into the Temple's process, and to prepare the world for the chrysalis mass. Becoming a Vector is to surrender. It begins with the implantation of a metamorph, a living organism that lodges in the spine, skull, or nervous system of the initiate. From that moment, transformation begins. Flesh distorts, thought bends, desires fade. Over time, the initiate ceases to think in individual terms. The pulse takes root. The voice of the self goes quiet, and in its place, the doorway speaks. Not in words, but in urges, shapes, colors, and hungers. The Temple's architecture is more than symbolic. It is alive, responsive, and sacred. Known collectively as Temple Flesh, its structures pulse with blood and rhythm. Halls flex and contract. Doors are muscular. Light filters through skin-like membranes. Each chamber is a womb, a throat, and nerve cluster. Initiates rest in nutrient pools. Oral organs vibrate with psionic sound. Entire wings of the temple are grown overnight in response to psychic demand. When a sister dreams, new corridors appear. When the pulse mourns, the walls bleed. When the temple hungers, its flesh extends, probing the world beyond with tendrils of raw becoming. Temple flesh is also defensive. When threatened, walls sprout spines and maws, pseudopods erupt from the ceiling, harmonic pulses disorient intruders, driving them mad with auditory hallucinations. The temple has no need for walls or armies. It is its own weapon, its own sanctuary, its own final form. To assault it is to step willingly into an immune system that reconfigures its invaders into worshippers. This living structure expands not by conquest, but by seeding. Husk nodes, partially developed masses of temple flesh, are planted in abandoned towns, bombed trenches, or infected strongholds. Fed by memory, emotion, and mutation, they grow into new sanctuaries. These expansion sites echo with fragments of the pulse, drawing in the wounded, the mad, the forgotten. As the temple grows, reality itself warps around it. Time dilates, language breaks, and dreams bleed into waking life. In such places, even silence hums, and even the soil begins to speak. Ritual is central to the temple's operation, not in the sense of symbolic gestures, but as acts of irreversible change. The rite of molting is the first step for many initiates, involving the shedding of skin in a symbolic rejection of former identity. The initiate is then immersed in a vat of symbiotic enzymes, where their flesh begins to mutate. Over days or weeks, they emerge reshaped, often no longer human in any recognizable way. Other rituals include the choral excision, in which the vocal cords are removed and replaced with resonant membranes that allow the initiate to sing into the pulse. The memory drain, which erases individuals' memories to allow for unity with the door, and the feast of self, a communal ceremony where initiates consume parts of themselves or one another in acts of holy sacrifice. and shared identity dissolution. Each rite is not an initiation, but an undoing, a peeling away of the unreal until only becoming remains. All of these rites prepare the temple for its ultimate goal, the chrysalis mass. This is not a cataclysm, not an apocalypse in the biblical sense. It is an event of unfolding. The moment when the doorway fully opens and all of reality is rewritten according to the temple's principles of metamorphosis. The Chrysalid sisters speak of this event in cryptic chords, hinting that time, space, and selfhood will be dissolved. The world will become a temple. There will be no war, no law, no hierarchy. Only the infinite unfolding of form, thought, and being. Other factions regard the temple with a mix of fear, hatred, and incomprehension. The faith keepers, who uphold the divine order, consider the temple the purest form of heresy. To them, the doorway is not just an abomination, it is a direct assault on God's design. The Black Grail, with its obsession with death and resurrection, views the temple with fascination and envy. Some among them believe the doorway may offer a path beyond life and death itself, one they wish to harness, if they could. But the temple cannot be controlled. It cannot be reasoned with, bribed, or slain. It does not want followers, it wants conduits. Even demons fear the temple. Though steeped in corruption, they are still bound by hierarchy and structure. Hell has rules, even if they are perverse. The temple has none. It is not chaotic. It is beyond order entirely. Demons that stray too close to the doorway sometimes return altered, stripped of infernal markings, speaking in broken tongues, their hatred replaced with alien clarity. Some simply vanish, their last thoughts echoing across the pulse like fallen notes in a forgotten symphony. In the no man's land of the war, where saints duel monstrosities and machines cry out in liturgical code, the Temple of Metamorphosis offers no peace, no stability, and no salvation. What it offers is truth. The truth that change is the only constant, that the self is a lie, and that one day everything will pass through the door. In the end, the temple's message is not one of conquest or conversion, but of inevitability. You may flee, fight, or forget, but the door is open. It has always been open, and sooner or later, all things will go towards it, shedding names and forms like dead skin. You will not be saved. You will not be remembered. You will become, and that is enough. The door is open. Okay, so that is the Temple of Metamorphosis, my least favorite thing in the Trench Crusade universe, because they are so terrifying. Oh my goodness, their aesthetic is horrific. I genuinely like. This video is going to be a pain to make because I'm going to have to look at so much of their art, which I kind of try to avoid because they're just so gross. I don't like insects. I don't know. The Black Grail is one thing. I didn't like them that much either, but like at least I can think of them like zombies. These guys are just creepy. But I do like how they're like Feel No Pain said one time. They are reverse moths. They stare at a dark spot and hope to gain clarity, because that's what they do. The initiates, they just sort of stare into dark corners until they begin to transform, thanks to the doorway's pulses. It's actually quite an interesting concept, and I feel they're just trying to fit as many interesting things they can into the setting. It isn't overcrowded, but I feel we're getting a lot of different factions, like with the new lore drops of the Path of the Beast. We have the Path of the Beast, the Temple of Metamorphosis. These two seem kind of like their own thing. The Temple of Metamorphosis kind of works with Hell to simply not be bothered by them. So they like just infect places after the hellish armies get rid of all those pesky, faithful people in the way. So I guess they are kind of aligned with hell, and so is the Path of the Beast. But they are also their own things from time before creation, before God, which I think is very interesting. So I'm curious to see how that goes. And I feel now is a very good time to make this video. Because if you have been looking on the Trench Crusade website, you will notice there is a doorway, or at least what kind of looks like a doorway. Now, I noticed this a few days ago. I actually noticed it before the last video went up. I don't remember if I mentioned it in it, but Trench Crusade has an ARG going on right now. And it's so cool. If you go to the website, you'll see at the bottom there is a shield with a lock on it and cracks. I believe it used to be that there was no cracks. And when it was first up, there was no cracks. There was 5 panels, and each one represented a different faction. There was the Path of the Beast, or the 7-headed serpent, one of the Hell factions. There was the Eye from Alamut, which made me think, oh, could this be relating to New Lore that's coming out? There was one for either Trench Pilgrims or New Antioch. I couldn't quite tell. There's one which looked like the flag of France back in the 1700s. And then one for the Sultanate of the Iron Wall, which we also recently received a lore drop from. So the Path of the Beast, the Iron Wall, and the Tower of Alamut, the Eagle's Nest. And maybe the faithful one was supposed to be Hera. Then there was, maybe there is a lore drop coming about France. And then there was this door, which has a lock on it, which if you click brings you to a password, which I don't think people have found out yet. There is a whole channel for it on the Discord that I've been trying to keep up with, but I'm not very good at these things, so I've just been looking at other people's ideas and seeing if I can get anything from it, which I haven't been able to. But recently the website changed, and with it, so did the doorway. The other 4 disappeared, and now all that is left is the door with a crack in it. I believe this has to be a reference to the Temple of Metamorphosis. If not, they're missing a brilliant opportunity, because the doorway is open. Just a crack for now, but it is open. So yeah, if you haven't been aware of that, please take a look at it. And if any of you are able to get into it, tell me what the deal is, please. I'm so curious about this. I assume, I was talking to Duke from Feel No Pain about this. He thinks that there is a big hint that we have yet to see. I am inclined to agree with him. I feel like the people in the Discord have been going through every little bit of lore they can get their hands on. And there is, one of the major hints is the fact that on the main page for Trench Crusade currently, if you see the highlighted words here, so for 8 centuries the church has waged its crusade to take back the holy city, yada yada yada. If you see, some of them are highlighted. The F, the O, the OR, the L. And basically, if you take them all out and put them in a thing, it says, I think it's for locusts have no kings. Which reminds me of the Metamorphosis, people in the Metamorphosis. So, I can't wait to see how this goes. If you have any more hints and can tell me, please do. Next video will be on Trench Hosts. It's already in the works. I've already made the script. The poll for it was at 31-31 for 2 days straight. So I assume you just want both of these equally as much. So I decided I'll deliver both of them to you. This will come first, and then hopefully the Trench Host will come a few days later. I will also be releasing a video on a new topic, just to sprinkle it in there for you guys. Nothing flashful, just on a game I've been playing a lot recently, and that I think a lot of you guys would be interested in if you don't know about it already. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for listening to me ramble about the ARG. And remember, the doorway is open. All you have to do is change.